don't think I can go back. Shoot. I think I forgot to put on my thumbnail. Hey, Miss Girl, how you doing? Miss Girl, I think I forgot to put up my thumbnail. I might have to do it after, but thanks for coming in, child, and thanks for the uh hey, Miss Creole. Like I said, thanks for dropping down. But anyway, I had to get on real fast. Won't take this won't take very long. But I'm going through the video feed and I come across a couple of videos of a couple of reactors here on YouTube, and they were speaking about a TikTok video and they were playing the video as well, the TikTok video, they were commenting on it. I want to give my 2 cents because I found it very interesting. And so they showed the TikTok video of a Native American woman pretty much giving a really, really incorrect version when it came to black people and settling in this country. She said that black people were settlers in this country because we are allowed to we are now allowed to like purchase land and live on and live on lands here in the Americas and whatnot. Hold on a minute, let me try to read this message. Okay, and so anyway, that's what I was waiting for. So I'm thinking, like, are they teaching this in the indigenous schools, on these tribal lands or something? Because her, views of being a settler as opposed to being enslaved or just like not true. And so here's the thing. She said that I'm assuming we were supposed to come on over here on the Mayflower, just like the Pilgrims, and settle the land, right? And the reason behind that is because I really think that the problem that she's having is you got a lot of black people like the Dane Callaways, and not only Dane Callaways, but a lot of black people online that say they are the original indigenous Indians. They were on, this land before the settlers and all of this and all that, right? Now, here's the thing. We are not indigenous to this country. There may have been black. We know that there, just like there were a black sailor, black I can't think of the word, black explorers, and all of this and all that back then that came from Africa exploring, the globe, different countries, different continents around the globe, right? Some of those Africans probably did settle down with some Native Americans in this country, as they did in every other country and every other continent. Our melon can be found throughout the diaspora, right? It is because the African peoples during that time were explorers. They were very wealthy people, like Mansa Musa. He was once the richest African on the planet because he possessed the most gold, right? So there were several African explorers, like Christopher Columbus, even before Christopher Columbus, that spanned the globe. How people mate and then they settle down and then they choose to stay. But when it comes to the indigenous people, they are the indigenous Indians, the indigenous American Indians. They are the indigenous people. This is their land, right? See, the problem comes in when she said that we were settlers. Black people were not settlers. She's completely omitting slavery, but she did try to say that we were settlers, but we were oppressed. But now she's considering us to be settlers because we are allowed to like work and trade and own property and build homes, but everything was not that way. And we, as black people that know our history, know that, right? But like I said, I think she, gets. I think she really is upset because you have people like Dane Calloway and a lot of black people that claim that they are the indigenous, peoples when it comes to this land. But when you deal with people like that, they want to they have an issue with their ancestral heritage, in my opinion. They don't want to accept and acknowledge even the Atlantic slave trade. I have a really big problem with people like Dan Calloway, pretty much trying to dispel anything regarding to the transatlantic slave trade as well as slavery. But let him tell it, his people were indigenous to this land. Now it is true that a lot of black people, some black people, have indigenous Indian in their blood. And hey, Tisa, girl, are you okay? I found out I was going to talk about what was going on in LA. Have you seen the National Guard? Are they in your neighborhood? And I'm like, oh my goodness, black people, please stand down. This is not our fight. They're gonna be coming for us in a minute anyway, child. Anyway, let me finish this. Then I want to talk about LA right real fast. So anyway, I got a couple of things I want to talk about. So uh you cannot be a settler and oppressed at the same time. You in North California. Okay, okay. How you doing, Angela T. White? I can't call you Olivia on my channel, right? So I'm gonna call you Angela T. White. So how you doing, right? And thanks for listening. So, like I said, the reason why you have a lot. I'm not gonna say a lot. The reason why you have some black people, a lot, just like you have a lot of black people that have white DNA in their system. We know that is because of slavery and rape and all sorts of other things, right? Well, the reason why this equation. Oh, no problem. The reason for there being there are several reasons why a lot of black people do in fact have Indian, in their blood, right? My grandmama was one of them. My grandmama on my father's side, her daddy was a Choctaw Indian, right? Full blooded. So anyway, during and then she did not mention the fact. Now I don't know if she mentioned it or not, but I didn't hear her mention the fact that some Indian tribes decided also to own slaves themselves, like the Cherokee Indians, for instance. They actually owned slaves, and there were many tribes that actually owned slaves in the United States of America. Like I don't say, I don't know why her history is so distorted. We were not settlers, honey. We were brought here where our people were abducted and were brought to this land to work this land, right? And so you are, in my opinion, she is really like ignorant. I don't know if she's if she doesn't know history, if she hasn't read history, or she's prejudiced, or she's angry because some black people, because of self hatred and other things, say that they are indigenous, to this land. I don't know what the deal is, right? So anyway, like I said, she did not mention the fact that a lot of Indian tribes, Native American tribes, at one point in time, they owned slaves. They bought and they owned slaves, right? Now, slavery, when it came to these Indian tribes like the Cherokee tribes, the slaves were treated differently. Yes, they were slaves. They were bought, and brought to these tribal lands. They worked these lands, but after a while they were released and they were allowed, if they wanted to stay on these tribal lands. A lot of these slaves got married. Hey, Miss Me. A lot of these slaves got married, and had families, with these indigenous natives, and they were not treated like chattel slaves. They were not treated they did not treat us like the Anglos treated us, right? And so, but they did in fact own slaves. So when you say that we were settlers, I'm just trying to make that make sense, right? And oppressed, but we were settlers. Two things can't be true at the same time. So it don't, especially when it comes to our history, especially when it comes to the system of chattel slavery. I did a live the other day. 12,000 ships came here with some of us, and 1.8 billion of us died coming. And that is making so bad, Miss Creole. That is only a rough estimate. Nobody can count the number of slaves that actually died, not only on these ships, but those slaves that rebelled, those slaves that chose to drown themselves. There were whole chains of slaves, like 10 to 12 or more. When they docked on this land, they decided to jump in rivers and stuff and drown themselves rather than to be traumatized and sold and raped and murdered and worked to death. They chose to drown themselves instead. They were jumping off the sides of ships. So that is a rough estimate. The genocide when it comes to our people is greater than any other genocide that happened on the planet. But yeah, you're right about that. But that's a lot. Yes, absolutely, a lot of people make it so bad. It's so many people. It's hard to wrap your mind around. But guess what, Miss Creole? I would imagine it was so many more, and that's the sad thing about it. That is an estimate. But what about all those people? Even to this day, there's genocide going on in these African countries. Like especially like the Congo. You know, and it's just so. Even to this day, our ancestral land has been colonized and recolonized, and genocide after genocide. They do experiments, just like they do experiments on us in this country. You see, the videos and the documentaries of all the experiments done on some of the African peoples, in that land, and they inject them with these sort of things in order to see what reactions they will have, in order to fill the pockets of these drug companies, right? And it's just so hard. But you're absolutely right. And so anyway, let me get back to this indigenous chick, right? So she said, I am a descendant of the Ray family. I don't know who the Ray family is, but okay. And so, but I want to read this. Tisa said, I read it. Great grandmama's Cherokee, full Cherokee. Yeah, my great granddaddy is full. My granddaddy actually is full blooded Indian as well, Choctaw Indian. So let me tell you, right? Um, so to say that black people were settlers, um, during the time where Europeans were coming over here and they were taking over this land. Hey, room shaker, and they were slaughtering, and they went to war with the indigenous natives. Over here we know that they stole their land. We know that they committed genocide, try to commit total genocide on their people as well. They use a bio weapon when it comes to these a lot of indigenous peoples. They gave them blankets when they sent them on a Trail of Tears to move them up to settle in places like Utah. But they were blankets infected with smallpox, and thousands of them died during this Trail of Tears, right? So we didn't have nothing to do with that, right? It was the Anglos that took your land and tried to murder off all your people. It wasn't us. Our ancestors were brought here to build this country because they could not do it, right? For whatever reason, they didn't even want to do it. They wanted to enslave and buy other human beings like their cattle to till their land like their farm animals, right? Like their donkeys and ox and horses, to work the land. That's what they wanted us to do. Okay. The propaganda put via the internet is sickening. Yeah, you're right about that, Tisa. Right? So I'm just trying to figure out where she got this idea that black people were settlers like the pilgrims. Like I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to make it make sense. But anyway, she clearly does not know, or she's trying to dismiss the system of chattel slavery as it pertains to black people and our ancestors, right? So anyway, like I said, they own slaves too. Now they have, I have seen comments from a couple of indigenous American Indians. They have dropped down in some of my old videos, and they don't like a lot of them. I'm not gonna say all because I don't know all of them, but pretty much they fell for the propaganda, and they don't like black people either. Now we all know that nobody on the planet likes black people. I'm gonna say melanated people throughout the diaspora, because a lot of African People don't consider themselves black. They don't like to be called black. Even when they come here, they like to be, called, by, by country or by tribe. If you're Nigerian, you want to be called Nigerian. You don't want to be called black. That sort of thing, right? But y'all, please double tap the screen and give me a like, will you? So anyway, that being said, they own slaves, like I said. Um, we were forced to work this land, and so I guess she's angry, because they, a lot of them, are still, in these tribal lands. I'm assuming by choice, or for whatever reason, right? They choose to stay with their own, and there's absolutely nothing with that. But you can't get mad at black people, for hundreds, for centuries, for over 400 years. Our people were enslaved, right? And we are still, we still, the foot is still on our neck when it comes to systemic racism, as well as it is still on the neck of those peoples. But when it comes to indigenous Americans, when it comes to the American Indian, they have been given reparation after reparation, and they were given their own, lands to dwell in. Now, some of those tribal lands that I understand are very poorly kept. Some of them, they say, don't have running water and things of that nature. But they have been given reparation after reparation. They have a system, an economic system that will allow some of these tribes to thrive. They've been given the casinos, and all of this and all of that, right? And so they get to go to college free. They've got all kind of benefits via these reparations. We cannot say the same for black people, right? It is not the same for us in this country, right? So you get to even just take, for instance, let's talk about Georgia real fast, right? The state of Georgia, since we're talking about the Cherokee, just to throw it out there, right? Because I think Tisa said her grandmama was a full-blooded Cherokee. So Tisa, did you know that during the 1900s, well, the first the 1800s, when it comes to the Cherokee people, the Cherokee peoples were they went to war with American soldiers because they wanted this land. They dwelled in Georgia, in places like they call it now Forsyth, Georgia, and in that region of Georgia, around the Atlanta area, and that region of Georgia, probably pretty much all over the state. But in particular, there's a there was a black settlement called Oscarville, right? Now, Oscarville was built alongside of a Cherokee Indian burial ground. And so there was a burial ground there. That burial ground, those lands were leveled, and homes and businesses were put on that land, not by black peoples, but we were in a, but we had land, a lot of us had land during the Reconstruction era. Um, they had built up a town called Oscarville, like Black Wall Street, right? They were thriving in that community. They were trading amongst themselves. Um, they had builders and just everything you think of in any other community they had in this predominantly this all black town of Oscarville, Georgia, right? And so the Indians subsequently were ran out of Georgia, that part of Georgia first, and they had to walk along the Trail of Tears, but still they had these Indian burial grounds there. Okay, so a little bit after that, like I said, in the early 1900s, the Reconstruction era, you got Oscarville, right? Well, eventually, the Anglos, just like they did Wall Street, felt a way about black people, not only surviving but thriving in this small community by the name of Oscarville, Georgia, right? So they did, what they always do. They said a black man, assaulted a white woman, and it set off, a riot, right? A bloodbath, right? And these men were subsequently hanged, and they went in and they attacked the black people of Oscarville, right? And a lot of black people that owned land. Farming was a big industry back then in Oscarville. A lot of black people owned their own land. A lot of black people decide to flee the county for safety. So they pretty much left their land delinquent. They took what they could take, or they took nothing at all, and they just left because they fled because they were afraid for their lives. You had some black farmers that sold their land, for less than, of course, less than market value, like literally pennies on a dollar, just so they could have monies so that they could leave, right? And so there was not only one attack on Oscarville, but there was another Anglo woman that was supposed to be attacked in the woods near Lake Lanier. And she was supposed to be hit over the head by a rock by a black man, and and assaulted or whatever, right? Her father was the sheriff of a neighboring county, so he thought that, well, he automatically assumed that it was a black man or black men that did this, right? So of course the people, they smell blood in the water, and they're wanting to lynch people and burn it to the ground. This time Oscarville was burnt to the ground. The land was still there, but it was burnt to the ground. Fast forward to they and more black people fled, of course, right? So fast forward to them built Lake Lanier is a man-made lake. Now, when they decided to build, can you believe if they were able to thrive? Yeah, absolutely. That's what they were afraid of. Many of our communities during the Reconstruction, they always want you to think that your people always needed a handout, or that your people never did good. Every time they started doing good with their own communities and things of that nature, they were always forced out by some, lie, so that they could destroy your land or take your land, or seize your property, displace you, because they couldn't stand the fact that you were not only surviving, but you were competing and thriving with them, with their communities, and sometimes you were doing better than their communities, like Black Wall Street, right? So, excuse me, y'all. So, fast forward to the construction of Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier is a man-made lake, and the town of Oscarville, the Cherokee Indian burial ground. All of that stuff was put underwater, right? And even to this day, people say that Lake Lanier is haunted, with the souls of not only Cherokee Indians but black people as well, because of how badly they were treated, right? So when you get this indigenous Indian woman having clearly so much hatred for black people and saying that we would, I didn't hear her say nothing about Anglos, right? She was focused on black people being settlers, and I'm thinking, girl, like, are you afraid to talk about the people that truly colonized your land? Because we were brought, our ancestors were brought here, and any achievement, anything that we're able to do this day, in this day and age, came with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And we have not been given reparations like your people, or anything else. We were not given our own, a plot of acreage to go live on. We didn't even have a trail of tears, right? We didn't even have that, right? Our people doing when they say Lincoln freed the slaves, he really wanted to move that labor from down south to up north for the black people could work in the factories, right? That's what that for. Even when it comes to this day, when it comes to the Constitution of the United States of America, it says that we are still 3/5 of a human being. That was not even removed. Fast forward to the 1960s and the Martin Luther King Civil and Human Rights Act, rallies and protests, peaceful protests and stuff. Can y'all not hear me? Let me know if y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me? Uh, Angela T. White said, can you hear me, Tisa? Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm back. Okay, child. I ain't never go nowhere. Maybe it was your thing. But anyway, um, I just wanted to say all that to say that she is truly misinformed, and that there is a whitewashing when it comes to black people and our ancestry. We know that in some school books these days, they don't even call us slaves. They call our ancestors indentured. They likened us to indentured servitude. We know that we were not indentured servants. We were chattel slaves. There were a lot of Anglo indentured service brought to this country. We know that because there were thieves and robber barons and things of that nature, and they would come, and do, be in service to a family, or whatever for a certain amount of time, 5, 6 years, and then they were set free. That's why you had so many, particularly so many, what do you call those people? So many Irish people that went on from their indentured servitude when the plantations and stuff started getting, very popular and very lucrative. They became overseers. They became, through past overseers, they became patty rollers, which is now they control the police departments, the Fraternal Order of Police. They gave the Fraternal Order of Police to the Irish. They gave the Fraternal Order of Fire Departments, or whatever you call it, to the Scottish, because they wanted to put them under the banner of white supremacy racism, right? And so you have to know your history before you come out and say something very inflammatory like that. And I understand why some black people are upset, because you are simply whitewashing history. You cannot be a slave, a settler, and be oppressed at the same time. Two things cannot be true in this incident, in this case, at the same time. That is not the history. That is not how it goes. So I don't know if she's just ignorant of that fact, or she's angry. Maybe she's scared to talk against the Anglo. I don't know what the deal is, but that is factually incorrect. And I want to talk about it because the scary part of it is a lot of black people will believe that stuff. A lot of black people, because of people like Dan Calloway spreading misinformation, really believe that there was no Atlantic slave trade, that we were always here. We are indigenous to this land. That is not true. Our ancestors were not indigenous to this land. The American Indian is indigenous to this land, right? But it is not our fault that these Anglo colonized your land. They colonized our home too. Not only did they colonize your land, they colonized our land, but then they abducted us from our land and brought us to your land to work your land so that they could take over your land. And that's what they did, right? People think it's shock. Maybe she was saying it for shock value, but I'm like, girl, and she really sounded like she knew what she was talking about, And I'm sure a lot of black people probably agree with her because they're ignorant. You simply do not know your history, and it just does not. My sound is messing up. Oh Lord, I don't even know. Let me hurry up and close this thing out. Can you hear me better now, Tisa? I'm sorry about that, y'all. I'm gonna have to close out in a minute. It's going in and out, but you're good now. Okay, well, let me put my face a little closer to the phone. I don't know. I guess I got habit trying to multitask. I didn't mean to be on here this long, but anyway, I found it very interesting. It's unfortunate because the same people that colonized you, your people, and did what they did to you and your people, they do to me and my people. And so, but the only thing is, you got reparations, okay, and we did it. All right. It's just passing through, but the sound is all right to me. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me try to hold it to my mouth a bit. But anyway, I just want to talk about that. I found it very interesting. There is a whitewashing when it comes to chattel slavery in this country. And it's just like I remember years ago when they were trying to take down all of these Confederate monuments and things of that nature. A lot of black people were. I didn't agree with that because those monuments need to stand, because people need to know the history. They need to know the atrocities that were committed on our ancestors, the slaves in this country. And how even to this day these people are glorified with statues and things, right? And so I don't. That's a sort of whitewashing of history, in my opinion, too. And so I don't agree with that, right? So anyway, I just want to speak on that. And real fast, I want to speak on. I'm glad Tisa was still in here because I want to know, if she knew. But I think she's in a different place other than Los Angeles. Because I don't know if you guys heard over the weekend or not that there were a protest outside of the ICE facilities, or facility in Los Angeles, California. The tear gas was sprayed on these people. These were peaceful protests at first. The people started to rise up and started to respond to them being attacked or whatever. And the LA Police Department said that they had it under control. They were taking care of it. Well, come to find out that Donald Trump, he went over Gavin Newsom's head and sit in the National Guard. Gavin Newsom said this was immoral, this was unnecessary, and it is against the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, the thing about that, and then they also said that there are also, riots in places like protests, peaceful protests in another big city, which is New York, but they hadn't gotten that bad yet. People don't realize that this was all planned out in Project 2025. In the first 100 days of Trump office, it was laid out in Project 2025. I don't know if you guys have heard of Project 2025, but there are videos on YouTube where he talks about he wants to impose he wants the National Guard to come in and institute martial law on the whole country. Now people got to realize that this is all political theater, right? So you know that eventually these people are going to want to fight back. You are taking their loved ones out their home. You're snatching them off the street. There's a man named Stephen Miller behind Trump. You never hardly hear of him or speak about him. You never hardly see him on camera. But they say he is worse than Trump. We know that Trump is a xenophobe. Trump doesn't even want to deal with black people, even though black people voted for him. They refuse to realize that he's a racist. They know he's racist. But some black people, because of self-hatred, will do anything to gain a proximity to whiteness, right? And acceptance to whiteness, especially a lot of fragile black men, right? Some black women too, but moreover, a lot of fragile black men, right? So, anyway, he's called in the National Guard. He's threatening to call in the Marines. So you want to wage war in Los Angeles on American citizens. Now, I'm not talking about these immigrants, whether they're illegal or not, and I suspect a lot of them are legal and not illegal. They have a quota. This Miller guy wants them to be arresting 3,000, upwards of 3,000 immigrants or illegal, what he's calling illegal immigrants a day. That's why they're snatching people off the street. We saw video of them slamming them on the ground and all this and all that. Of course, these people are going to fight back, and you are taking their families away from them like it's crazy. It's like Nazi Germany or something, right? But anyway, like I said, Gavin Newsom doesn't agree with what Trump did. Trump, just bypassed him, like I said, and called in the National Guard and said they got the Marines on standby. Now, you got to realize this is all, they're still going by Project 2025. This is all a setup, and this is my opinion, right? I don't know this for true, but this is my opinion. So I'm going to say allegedly because this is my theory, right? So you're doing all of this to inflame these immigrant, what you're calling illegal immigrant people, right? You're taking their people to these facilities. You're taking them out of schools. You're snatching them off the street. You are terrorizing these people, right? Whether they are legally here or not, you are terrorizing these people, right? Now, at the same time, in the background, okay, so you done overrode Gavin Newsom. Donald Trump hates Gavin Newsom, in my opinion. They do not get along. So he didn't even ask for Gavin Newsom's. Well, Gavin Newsom was supposed to ask him to call in the National Guard, but the LAPD said they got it under control. But Donald Trump usurped him and put the National Guard on there anyway, right? They say these people are coming in with their faces covered and all of this and all. I was like, dang, is this the Purge Anarchy or something? You know what I mean? Because check it out. While they are down here and you got ICE fooling with these so-called illegal immigrants, you also have a lot of, what are they doing? Nobody's talking about if black people are being taken away, right? You got to pay attention, right? So after they get what they I guess all of the illegal, what they're calling illegal immigrants out of here, who do you think they're going to start on next, right? I put a video on my community wall of Trump's biographer letting people know what Trump really thinks about black people, right? Now we know that also at the same time you have that going on, they want this horrible spending bill passed. Elon Musk and Donald Trump is supposed to be arguing on X or Twitter or whatever you call it, which is nothing but political theater. It's all a distraction, in my opinion. It's all a distraction to divert away from the fact that they want to impose martial law in every state of the union, in my opinion. And that is what I feel is going on. And not only does, okay, so he's messing with people in New York too. This one of the second largest city, right? So what's going to happen when he when he sends the National Guard in New York? And what's next? Even down south, you got these skinhead and KKK people. They're putting on ICE uniforms, right? And supposed to be getting the illegals, out of down south. And I'm like, really? Is that what's going on? Now, when it comes to down here, it's glowingly apparent what's really going on. Okay, so ICE is code word for what? KKK? Like, I'm trying to make it make sense, right? So, like I said, once they get through, when they feel like they get these people under control, who do you think they're coming for next? That is why I want black people to be alert and be aware of your surroundings. Why do they have to cover them faces? Why are they putting on black masks to go out and do all this and all that? Why are you wanting it to bring into the military, against the American military? You want them to attack their own American citizens? Make it make sense. Like I don't understand what's going on. And so you're saying that you are trying to get these rioters, or what does he call them, insurrectionists, under control and all of this and all of that. But at the same time, who's getting caught in the crossfire? Who is getting caught in the crossfire? So I just really want you. Now I know we like to come on, and get, have a good kiki, and talk about, stuff that's really not important to the world. But this right here, this is noteworthy. This is important, and people need to realize what's really going on, cause you're gonna get caught with your pants down, okay? And when S hit the fan, what are you gonna do? And all the whole time you gonna claim you didn't know nothing about it. You on the internet 24 hours a day talking about nonsense, but you didn't know nothing about what was really going on in the real world. Okay? That's why they say black people is the last to know, about something. So you've been warned. You are too ignorant to see what's going to go on. You are still the number one target. You are still the most hated in this country. I don't care what they say about illegal immigrants and them wanting them out. They don't want you here either. They can't get rid of you like they can get rid of them, but they can put you in jail. Why do you think they are? If they want these prisons like in El Salvador to house what they're calling illegal immigrants. Okay, so we really gonna believe that they just gonna be housing illegal immigrants? Okay, when they start locking up your brothers and your sisters and your aunties and your uncle, and sending them to El Salvador, okay, because they thought, quote unquote, thought you was an illegal immigrant, even though you was born here, even though your ancestors' blood is in this soil, right? And then they want you to be dumb. That's why they're messing up the public school system. They want you to be dumb, destitute, and desperate, right? So they want to put you in a subservient role. They want you being the housekeepers again, and the bellman and the doorman. They want you in a subservient role because that's what they need you to be in order for them to feel safe. Do you see what's going on? That's why I say black people really need to pay attention to what's going on in this country. It ain't all about no illegal immigrants, honey. They ain't doing nothing but testing the waters. And who gonna be foolish enough to believe that Donald Trump and Elon Musk is really into it for real anyway? Okay, it ain't even all. There's too much money on the table. Okay, too much money on the floor. And Donald Trump wants to take control over this country by any means necessary. He want to run it like it's Russia or something like that. Right? He don't want to. He wants to be the king. We know he want to be the king. He don't want to be the president. Right? So that he wants to destroy the Constitution of the United States of America, and he's doing it a little bit at a time. But like at the end of the day, pay attention, black people. Okay, pay attention so you won't be caught off guard. And that's why I want to do this video today as well. I'm hearing so many black people say they're not putting their bodies, on the line for the same people that couldn't stand with us. You're absolutely right, Tisa. Why would you? We don't have nothing to do with this. This is between them and Trump. Okay, see, they don't like us either. That's why I'm glad a lot of black people, hopefully all black people, are standing down, honey. You have to fight for yourself. See, these people don't like you either. No other people like us throughout the whole diaspora. Not the American indigenous Indian, the immigrants that come over here. Next they're going after they're not only going after the Latinos and the I guess the Mexicans and whatever. They're going after people in the Haitian communities. They're talking about them. They're putting them, on planes and flying them back into Haiti. It's a lot going on. It's not just what if they try to say, well, I thought you was a Haitian American. No, you didn't. No, you did not. Okay. And so normally here in California, we stand with the Hispanic community. That hasn't been the case this time, and it shouldn't be the case this time, because see, charity starts at home. Okay, and they ain't gonna stand with you, but they want you to stand with them. And right is right, and right don't wrong nobody. What black people need to be doing is being aware and standing vigilant and becoming prepared for the things that are to come. That's what we need to be worried about. That is not our fight right now. That is not our place, and that is not our problem. You need to be paying attention to what's going on in your own house, in your own community, so you can be ready. Because you best believe something is coming. Soon as they through dealing with them, see, that's just a warm up, right? That really is not okay. They want them out of here. Okay, so what? Big deal. All right, you can do that. You can get most of them out of here. But what is the target for real? The target is for real is the people that he really can't stand. Okay, which is black people, right? That is the target. They want to subjugate you. At the end of the day, they won't feel comfortable unless you're in some type of subservient role or some subservient role. So you really got to pay attention, to what's really going on. So I just found that interesting. I was like, oh my God, do people really see what's going on? All of this stuff is a distraction. Elon Musk and Donald Trump fighting, honey, distraction. Right? This stuff with the ICE immigrants, they are picking with these people on purpose. They want them to get riled up. They knew that they were going to start protesting, even if it's peaceful protesting. They wanted to have a reason to call in the National Guard. It was a whole setup. You messing with people's families and stuff like that. You're slamming them down on the street. Put them in these ICE facilities and things of that nature. Whether they illegal or not. You're putting them in these facilities. You're not checking them out properly. What do you think is going to happen? See, all of this, it's like picking a fight with somebody. You keep poking with a person, and keep poking with a person, and keep poking with a person. Eventually, they're going to fight back. And see, that's what's going on. And it was all orchestrated, in my opinion. Our communities are so closely linked here, right? But voting for him, they thought Trump would target the other black community, right, and voted for. Yes, I don't even know. Like, if on his first term, all he talked about was building a wall and illegal immigrations and getting rid of the migrants and all of this and all of that. He talked about that in his first term. What did you think was going to be different this second term? See, that first time he was not ready. He was unprepared. This time he is ready. He is prepared, and he has a whole playbook that he's going by. And so people really need to pay attention, not only black people, but black people in particular, because like I said, when they feel like they've got these people, these immigrants or migrants or whatever they want to call them under control, who you think because they coming for next? Even in the midst of all this going on with the migrant situation and ICE and all of this and all of that, they still gonna mess with you too. Okay? Let's be for real. Pay attention, black people. That's really all I wanted to say. And then you got ignorant people. There is a whole lot of. I suspect that there is a whole issue when it comes to black people and what the indigenous Indians think about, black people. But that is because of propaganda, just like the whole diaspora hates us, they do too, right? Honey, but we are not the enemy. We are not the ones that took your land away from you, okay? Not only were we brought over here, stripped, stolen from our land, our homeland, our ancestral lands, and brought over here, to work for centuries to the point to where we have generations and generations of blood in the soil, but also the whole continent of Africa has been colonized and recolonized, right? But let me tell you what I found funny before I get off here, because I'm gonna have to get off here, right? um, when they come to the fake fight between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because I think it's our political theater. Like I said, you got crazy old greasy looking pig face Steve Bannon over there talking about Elon Musk need to be deported back to Africa. He's an illegal too. Go back to where you came from. I wonder how Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is very racist too. He's a white South African. How does it make him feel? Or does he even care when you hear somebody like Steve Bannon saying, go back to where you came from? Because, even to this day, the Anglo would love to say that. Go back to where you came from, honey. We came from here. Like, what do you mean? You go back to where you came from because we were brought over. We were forced to be in this country, but you came over here voluntarily. They called us involuntary immigrants, right? Instead of chattel slaves, but you were voluntary immigrants when you come from places like Italy, and Europe and Scotland and wherever else. You come from Sweden or wherever. You are an immigrant as well. This is not your land originally, just like it's not our land originally. But we didn't ask to come over here, honey. We were abducted. You see the difference? Your land was colonized by the Anglo, and I don't understand why that Indian girl would put out a whole bunch of misinformation like that. I mean, she was rich. Well, they're settlers. They're not, and they were oppressed, but they're settlers. I'm like, girl, you sound like a fool. You sound foolish. Okay, even to this day, if black people or have to work harder, and be smarter, and excel over a whole lot of obstacles just to have anything, any little thing in this country. Okay, so I don't know that train of thought, and I'm kind of offended by the fact that she said that we were settlers. Like our ancestors asked to come over here. We asked to be put on these ships and stuff and chained, shackled together like sardines, And a lot of us died or killed themselves because we didn't want to come over here and be treated the way a lot of our ancestors were treated, or died from complications and diseases or whatever on these ships because they were so unsanitary. But we were settlers though. Okay. All right. We just gonna have to make it make sense. But that's what I mean by our history is being whitewashed. All right. And I hate that a lot of younger black people don't even realize um the plight of their ancestors. A lot. Now, I'm not gonna say all. Some of them do. A lot do. But there are a lot that don't. They just dumb down and ignorant. Okay. And that causes you to go file for anything, okay? Because you don't have enough the sense to stand for your own people. It's not only just young people, it's older people too. It was somebody on here one time and said they was older, like around about my age or close, at least in their 40s, saying that they had never encountered racism. They didn't know nothing about the history and all of this. I'm thinking, so you don't live this long and you ain't never got your N-word wake-up call? Wow, you must live in a bubble. But there's a lot of self hatred that goes on. There are a lot of black people that do anything to have a proximity to whiteness. Just any old kind of thing, and that's dealing with, like I said, self hatred. But for somebody to come out and blatantly say that we were settlers, that is ridiculous. Okay, like give me a freaking break. Like get your facts right. That don't make no sense. So anyway, I'm gonna let these young folks have a chat, but I had to come on and say what I had to say. I'm gonna get off of here, y'all. I'm multitasking. I wasn't even supposed to be on here this long, but I really want y'all to know what was going on. And don't fall for the okie doke. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Please, please try to pay attention to the fact that we get ready to go through a whole different phase in this country right about now. They're gearing up for it. But if you haven't seen a video on Project 2025, I suggest you go look at some of those videos because the plan was laid out in this Project 2025 plan, and I call it a manifesto because that's what it is to me. All the hate and anger, and all of the divisiveness, it's like Mein Kampf. If you know anything about Hitler's Mein Kampf and World War II, it's that type of plan, right? It's called nationalism, white nationalism, okay? Whether they want to say it or not, that's what's going on, right? So, and then you got these and TISA and police people in these big states like New York, melanated people all over. Watch your back, cause you got like government agencies wrapped up in face masks and stuff. You can't tell who they are, see who they are, anything going through communities, with tear gas and weapons, talking about they're trying to, control the community. They got martial law on you. So be careful, okay? Because bullets don't have no eyes, all right? That's all I got to say. Be careful, watch your back, watch your side, watch your front. It is not your place to be out here rioting for these people. This is not our fight. You better be ready, okay, and try to be prepared. That's what you can be working on. And I hope I don't see any black people, child, rioting for these people, because honey, they ain't gonna riot and protest for you, okay? Charity starts at home, all right? So stand down. We ain't got nothing to do with this, right now. But we will soon. Soon as they feel like they got them under control. Like I said, that's just a dress rehearsal, in my opinion, for what they want to happen in this country. So anyway, I gotta go. I love you guys. Thank you guys for joining me. Please share the video. Please check out the products that they have in the product tag bag. You guys be safe. Tisa, you be safe, honey. Y'all be diligent. Everybody be diligent and watch your back, front, and sides. Don't be falling for this revisionist history, this whitewashing of history as it pertains to our people. Like I said, they want you dumb, destitute, and desperate, right? Okay, they want you back in a subservient role so that they can feel more comfortable. All right? But we know that that is not going to happen. That can never happen again in this country. And they know that. Hint, hint, martial law, anyone? But anyway, I got to go. I'm going to talk to y'all later. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye. Peace.